Hey guys, welcome back to Addy Aviates. It's going to be episode number 4 of the VATSIM for Dummies series. This episode we're going to be going over how to talk to ground. The last episode we went over how to get a craft clearance or an IFR clearance. So if you haven't watched that, make sure you do. I'm going to put a card up here. So let's just get right into it. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you grab the ATIS. So to do that, there's one of two ways. You can go ahead and double click on the ATIS for the airport that you're at. It's going to give you it in text form. Or you can look at the frequency 125.025. Come down here, 125, 025.
3.
And now you have it in actual sound.
Visual approach runway 11
so after you get the ATIS,
departing runway 12 left.
you want to make sure you note it down. So just like always, make sure you have a writing utensil and something to write on. So I have just a regular notebook and a pen. And as you can see here with the last ATIS I took, I wrote Zulu because that was information Zulu. I wrote the winds and then the altimeter setting. Just going to make sure the important details, take those down. So like, for example, winds, temps, altimeter, the runway that they're using, stuff like that. So make sure you take down the important stuff and then you write what information it is. And I like to circle it just so I can quickly reference it. The next thing you're going to want to do is get your plane set up for push and start. So every plane is different depending what aircraft you're flying. But for the 737, you just got to get the battery started, APU, the fuel pumps on, all that kind of stuff. So get to the point where you can start your engines, but don't actually start them yet, because let's go ahead and check the ATIS again, because you might have some important information in here regarding push and start. So as you can see here, just scanning over it, visual approach. There is nothing in this particular ATIS that says anything about push and start, but sometimes you will have push and start at your discretion, which means you do not have to call ground for push and start. And then sometimes you won't. So in this case, since it doesn't say anything about it in here, you would have to call ground for push and start. And it's the same process as before, just like I always said. Who are you talking to? Who are you? And then what do you want? So in this case, we would say St. Louis ground, Southwest 1929, ready for push and start. They might say push and start at your discretion, or they might say cleared for push and start, or not cleared for push and start, or whatever they're going to tell you. But most of the time with VATSIM, it is at your discretion, which means that you can push without having to ask. But like I said, if it doesn't say anything in the ATIS, just ask. Here's a clip of me on VATSIM asking for push and start, just so you know how it sounds in real time. Oakland ground, Southwest 1928, requesting push and start.
Southwest 1929, Oakland ground, push at your discretion.
Roger, push is at our discretion, Southwest 1929. So as you can see, in this case, they told me it was at my discretion. So I proceeded to push back, start my engines, and then at this point, you're ready for taxi. Now, this is where the ATIS, circling the ATIS on the piece of paper comes in play, because for this particular call, you're going to need to tell them the ATIS, because they want to make sure that you have the accurate and updated information for the airport. So here's my call for taxi on that same VATSIM flight you just saw there. I'm going to play it for you, and then we're going to break it down afterwards. Oakland ground, Southwest 1929, ready for taxi with Zulu.
Southwest 1929, runway 12, taxi via Uniform Whiskey.
Taxi to runway 12 by Uniform Whiskey for Southwest 1929. As you guys heard, I said Oakland ground, Southwest 1929, ready taxi with Zulu, and he responded Southwest 29, taxi to runway 12 via Uniform Whiskey. So, what happened there? Who are we talking to? Oakland ground. Who are we? Southwest 1929. What do we want? Taxi. So we told him we're ready for taxi, and then I gave him the ATIS at the end. This is the only time you're going to have to give a controller ATIS unless they specifically ask for it. But make sure you have that pen and paper ready, because when they give you your taxi instructions, sometimes it is super intricate and long and a bunch of different taxiways and cross this runway and hold short of this runway. So make sure you have your paper and be ready to write the instructions down. That way you can read it back to them on your paper. Also, make sure that you have a way of finding out the taxiways at the specific airport that you're at. For example, I use Navigraph, and for each flight they give you the chart of the airport and the taxiways. So in this particular case, it was right here, taxi to 12 via Uniform Whiskey. You could also look up Flight Advance map, or even just look up the chart. So I could just look up Oakland taxiway chart and something will pop up. So make sure that you also have a way of knowing which taxiway is which. After you get your taxi clearance, you are good to go. Go ahead and taxi to the runway that you were told via the taxiways you were told. And the last thing that you're going to hear from ground is once you're approaching the runway or nearing the runway that you're about to take off on, they will give you a tower handoff. For example, this is going to sound something like Southwest 1929, contact tower 121.9. So then you would just say, over to tower 121.9, Southwest 1929. Here is the tower handoff from that same flight I've been showing you guys the clips of.
Southwest 1929, everybody above me is offline. Frequency change to Unicom approved. Have a good flight.
All right, over to Unicom for Southwest 1929, thanks. So as you guys can see, in typical VATSIM fashion, tower wasn't online, so he just cleared me over to Unicom, which is the traffic advisory frequency on VATSIM, which is 122.8, in case you guys didn't know. So I hope you guys have started to notice a pattern by now, and that is exactly what I've been telling you guys on how to talk to ATC. Who you're talking to, who you are, what you want. That is pretty much it. Unless they talk to you, you respond with what they told you. So say they're giving you like a heading to fly, Southwest 1929, fly heading 120. Then you just repeat that instruction back to them. So fly heading 120, Southwest 1929. So unless they talk to you, if you're contacting them, it's going to be the same outline 99% of the time, which is who are you talking to, who are you, and what do you want. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of VATSIM for Dummies. I really hope it helped you. If it did, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Also, if you have any questions, same thing, leave a comment down below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. But other than that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and I will see you guys later.